Okay, meeting call to order. We need an approval of the minutes of February 11th.
We'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Nick, second by Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to 3. Are there any public comments? Seeing as no public comments, we'll move on to 4, old business. Any old business? You guys are making this too easy.
It's March Madness.
I know, I knew that. That's why I thought, okay. Okay, we're moving on to new business. Zoo Education Program, presented by Josh Scadam. Josh?
Yeah.
I'll quickly introduce Josh, just so he's not completely caught off guard, but Josh is our assistant zookeeper and educator for the zoo. Josh joined us probably in the spring of last year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And he's been with us ever since, and he's a student at UW Stevens Point I'll let you introduce your friend, and he's also going to be leaving us already. He's graduating in May, and he's already been accepted a full-time position down at a zoo in El Paso, Texas. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Thanks. So, like it's been said, I'm a student at UW Stevens Point, so I study wildlife research and management and biology and captive wildlife management. This spring I graduate with a Bachelor's of Science. Today I'll be talking about some educational programs that I've been developing for the school and the community of Marshfield. I also brought with myself Nate. Nate, if you want to introduce what you do.
Yeah, I'm Nate Four. I'm also studying wildlife ecology at UWSP, and I am a co-leader of the BAT project with the student chapter of the Wildlife Society at Point.
Yeah, so I have multiple partnerships kind of working I'm working with for these projects, and I thought I'd bring a representative of one of them so we can kind of explain what he's doing as well. So if we go to the next one. So I thought I'd start with a lowdown of what we do currently at our zoo. So with Wildwood, we provide the community with recreational, conservation, and educational opportunities. Our current program at Wildwood includes our zoo tour programs, our bear exhibit programs. They're more of a behind-the-scenes tour experience. Some summer education programs, which are programmed throughout the summer, as well as our Wild Wednesdays and any other special events like trick-or-treating at the zoo. So right now I'm working on 3 educational programs. I'm kind of taking away from some experiences that I've had this past year at UWSP. One of them would be part of my Foundations of Environmental Education class, in which I actually created kind of a lesson plan and curriculum. So I'm using that background as well as a weekend that I spent up at Tree Haven for an environmental education winter workshop. So kind of networked with a lot of people and figured out what was going on throughout the state and kind of tried to gear that towards what I wanted to do for programs. So I guess I'm coming with you guys with 3 different ideas. So I have 3 different lesson plans. 2 of them I've already kind of have written out and planned. I have a zoo animal life history and sensory enrichment program. I have a spring frog and toad program or lesson plan, and then as well as an interpretive bat program. The 2 that I've written so far are the zoo animal life history and sensory enrichment program, which I'll probably come up with a little bit easier of a name that's not too wordy, but it's basically coming off of from our education programs, in which the members of the public or a student group will select an enrichment item and then learn about the animals. The spring frog and toad program would be a seasonal spring program, so I have that one written out, and right now I'm still currently developing the interpretive bat program. All 3 programs are working with different community groups, as well as a partnership with the UW Stevens Point. So the first one would be the Marshfield Community School District. The second group would be the TWS Undergrad Bat Research Group, and then some Eagle Scouts that'll be building some bat houses for us. Next slide. So while I was up at Tree Haven for this winter workshop, I was learning about how different EE programs and I guess different agencies and of how they're implementing technology into their programs. And mainly, I created a budget for an iPad device as well as what we call an Ecometer Touch, which is basically a mobile bat detection device. So that was the biggest reason why I wanted the iPad purchase, but then also to enhance our other current programs as well. So this would include our education programs and tours, in which we can have a better framework using PowerPoint and other things to kind of create an experience that uses interpretive media. It includes applications for programs such as iNaturalist, which I'll talk about. Some other things that I'm using for my reflection portion of my lesson plans, so like snapshot and comic strip, in which the kids can illustrate their experience and kind of reflect on what they learned, as well as a mystery Skype session, which I hope to use for my animal enrichment programs, in which we'll actually be able to Skype with the school before they come for a visit to the zoo to learn about the animals. Then the other purchase, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is our Anabat Echometer Touch, which will allow us to do tours in the zoo and the trail system, in which we'll be able to identify bats flying overhead. And then any other zoo tour work that we want to do, or any zoo survey work, and then any other zoo functions, such as recording information and any other zoo dynamics that the iPad can serve, I guess. So right now I'm working with the Marshfield School District, in which I'm working with the outreach coordinator. Right now we're kind of forming a small partnership in which we want to provide two schools with after-school programs. This is grades 1 through 6. This is kind of my trial phase in which I'm trying these lesson plans out. So far we have programs booked for 4 days in April. We're working with 2 different school groups, and we're doing 2 programs. So we have about 30 kids each day. First day would be from one school. The next week it's the same program for a different school group. So we're working in a partnership. We hope for it to expand even more in the future, in which we'll be doing fall and summer programs as well. But it's kind of an exciting moment. We're doing our animal sensory enrichment program, and then the frog and toad program as well for them. So basically the animal sensory program is an on-site program for a max of 30 people. This is on our website right now, when we're right now working on what it's going to cost for school groups, as well as future members of the public that want to engage in this program. But basically it's just like our Wild Wednesday program, or our education programs, but we have a lesson plan to back it up. So then school groups will actually, or instructors will be able to know what their students are going to experience when they come to our school or our site, and how they're going to learn about the animals and what exactly they're going to learn. So the objectives are to explore the sensory pathways that are targeted through animal enrichment, and how animal enrichment benefits the animal's well-being. The big idea message is that our animals at the zoo are very interesting and exciting, and they require special care. So basically the school group or the public group would contact the zoo at least a week in advance. They would select an animal and then an enrichment item that they'd want to choose. They have the option to mystery Skype with the zookeeper or zookeeping staff, so kids kind of guess what animal they're going to visit with yes or no questions, kind of get them excited and primed for their zoo visit. And then they come for their on-site program, and they come learn about the animals, and then they have an opportunity to use the app or the iPad for a reflection portion. Our other program is a Wisconsin frog and toad program. So basically we're going to have a lot of amphibians calling this spring once they're emerging from hibernation. This is something I've noticed when I was working there this past spring. And what's nice about our zoo is that we have all North America taxa, so all the animals at our zoo are going to be found in North America. We try to exhibit them in a way that they're in kind of a natural setting, so we try to create a natural looking exhibit, and it's a way for our zoo members or zoo audience visitors to experience something that they'd find out in their backyards. So this is taking it in a different direction, which we're actually taking them to the trail system to kind of learn even more about the native fauna and flora that we'd find here in Wisconsin. So this one's about frogs and toads. I suggested about a max of 20 kids for this program because we will be out in the trail. The length would be about 45 minutes. It doesn't include a mystery Skype session, but the kids would be coming in and engaging with a new application that I'm trying to use called iNaturalist. So the kids would come learn about the frogs, and then we go out on the trail to see what calls are actually being emitted or what frogs are actually calling. Certain frogs are going to call at certain times of the year. They have a phenology or a pattern that they exhibit within different species. So if you go to the next slide. So here's the iNaturalist app. It's a citizen and science geared application in which anybody, it's almost like a wildlife journal but on your phone. So anybody can engage with this program in which you log different plants or animals or other living things into it, and then professionals will actually identify it for you. It's an experience in which people can learn about the different biota or different living things in our trail system. So I'm not gonna, I created a site, so Wildwood actually has a site, and then it also has other projects. You can also be involved in global projects as well. So when kids are coming and recording what frogs they're hearing, it's also part of a project in which frogs all over the United States are actually being logged into. So it's part of an even larger database in which scientists are participating in. What's really nice too is that it's adaptive to anything really. So we could do a tree walk in the future. We can do a walk in which we look and see what birds we can find at the time. But we can also create guides, which is nice. So if you click on that link right here, this is on our website as well. For when you click on this program, you can see this guide. But it lists all of the different frogs and toads you'd find in Wisconsin. You can click on different species to learn about them, and then you can also print off a PDF. So when kids actually go into our trail system, and if the school brings their iPads or we use ours, they'll be able to see on the device what amphibians we're going to actually see. So it's kind of a fun new interactive program that we'll have within our own program. So you go on the next one. So the third program I'm working on, I'm still writing the lesson plan for that one because I'm still learning how to actually use this application, and I'm also still working on the partnership with the Wildlife Society. We are working on a Wisconsin Bat Monitoring Partnership. It's a new education initiative, but even more excitingly, it's a large conservation initiative as well. We're working with UWSP in the student chapter of the Wildlife Society. Basically, we're going to have an SM4 bat detector placed inside of our zoo where we'll do year-round monitoring of bat species. If you want to explain it a little bit more. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So last fall, the student chapter of the Wildlife Society at UWSP decided to create a bat project for undergraduates, and I'm a co-leader for that. And this past semester, Josh contacted us and asked if we wanted to put one of our stationary ultrasonic detectors at the zoo. And we decided to do that because we are interested in the bat activity levels between species as well as between different habitat types and at different times. So we have a couple different detectors that we're using, and Marshfield Zoo is pretty close, so we thought it would be a perfect place to get some data for our research project as well as use as an educational tool for zoo visitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll have some educational signage. The site that we picked for it is alongside the wolf exhibit, so it's still going to be inside the zoo for protective reasons. Plus, it is signage, so we do want it inside the zoo, so then zoo visitors will see it. It is next to our wolves, so we think we're going to get a lot of traffic next to it too. But what's nice about it is with the iPad attachment, we can give information on bats to the Wisconsin DNR, but what this group is providing for us is more longitudinal data. So it's more truthworthy data, I guess, rather than small snapshots when we're monitoring. So then all the data that we're gathered is going to be used by these guys, and they'll present it at a research symposium as their own research project, but then it's also giving to the Wisconsin DNR. So we're contributing to science in the study of bats, which will be really exciting. We hope to do some survey work maybe with the iPad device as well, in which we can kind of learn about zoo visitor perceptions behind bats. So they can just take a quick survey on their phone, or they can take a pamphlet home, which we'll have, and we can kind of figure out what people think of bats as well. Yeah, so this is the other device that we have, so it's the other bat detection device. What my idea for right now for this program is we can do programs during zoo hours for school groups or public groups if they want, in which they'll learn about bats, but then they can come back and actually survey for bats as well. So we can do a school program in the spring and then have families and their kids come back in the evening, and we'll actually go out and detect bats. I'm also thinking about creating a workshop experience in which a group can sign up and we'll be inside, maybe in the Ludwig building, learn about bats, and then go out and actually find bats and see what are present right now. So if you click on this device right here, or device, this link. So this is what.
So
this
we're gonna
experience is
go over
like.
there and walk around, pick up some bugs, and hopefully we'll see lots of bats. You ready? We're gonna head right over here.
So it actually identifies the bats in real time. So as bats are flying overhead, it'll identify them for us, which is kind of cool.
Awesome. That was a big brown bat. That is the most common bat in southeast Michigan and the second largest bat in Michigan.
So I don't know of any other zoo facilities that actually have a program like this. There are zoo facilities that do have a partnership with the Wisconsin, with their DNR, their state DNR, and that do bat monitoring. But I don't know of any zoos that actually use this application. So it's kind of really interesting, something new. Bat conservation is kind of a hot topic, so I think it'll expand and can move in different directions as well. I've also been informed that we have about 19 parks within Marshfield, so I would like to see community groups maybe move forward, maybe with the Eagle Scouts as I'm working with them, in which we can do bat walks. So different park locations, we can install a bat house and maybe someone can adopt it, and then we can walk around and survey for bats, which will be a cool conservation initiative for the city of Marshfield. So this is kind of the overview of what's gone so far. On the 14th, the school district selected for 2 programs that we'll be doing. On the 18th, so tomorrow, I'm actually meeting with him and we're talking about registration and the planning. And then in April, we have 4 programs scheduled. Still working on writing the lesson plan for the BAT program, but I'm hoping by May, when I'm meeting with the school district tomorrow, by May we can set up a program to learn about bats and for community members to come back and do a bat walk, which will be fun. Cool. Do you guys have any questions? I know I talked a lot.
I have a question. Would you consider putting those lesson plans on our website as an educator link?
Yeah, so we actually have a link now. We're still working in progress. If we bring it up, it has the 2 lesson plans that I've created. We kind of created a description for the program and what school groups will get out of it. And then from there they can arrange a program with us. We don't want to put our exact lesson plan online because we don't want people to snatch it, I don't think. But in the future, when you guys do register for a program or if you're interested, we could probably send the lesson plan for you. Does that answer your question? Cool.
I was looking to snatch it, so.
Gotcha.
I'm a middle school science teacher.
Okay, cool. Yeah, with the bat detector, the Echometer Touch, I ordered also an educational pamphlet for school groups to so it actually has in-class lesson plans as well. I was also using the AZA website, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and they have like a thematic themes section in which I pulled some more lesson plans. So we can actually expand off of the programs that I've already created. That way your school visit can be longer than 45 minutes and you can be a little bit more engaging or engaging in different ways. So here's the 2 links that we have so far.
Can you click on them?
Sure.
I can do that.
So you can kind of see what they look like maybe. So here's our sensory animal enrichment program. So it kind of gives you a description of what enrichment is, kind of the process for setting this up, and then if you scroll down a little bit, I think it'll tell you what the program includes as well. With this, we'll send background information about the animal that you'd select. We also give you a list of enrichments because we want to make sure that what's selected is an appropriate enrichment item, but we're willing to work with schools ahead of time if given enough time in which the schools can, or the classroom can actually create an enrichment item. So I think in the past we've had schools create piñatas or maybe a scarecrow or something. That way they have a little bit more of an investment in the program, maybe more of a fun experience. And there's that one too. I've actually put the iNaturalist guide on this one for the frog and toad survey.
And you said these are geared toward 1st through 6th grade, is that correct?
Yep. So with how I have the lesson plans, I try to make it adaptive for different audience groups. With the programs that we're doing in April, it's for grades 1 through 6. So it's for a mixed audience of kids. So.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess first of all, it seems like you put a lot of thought into these, and I think it looks very good, very organized. I guess after you leave, I mean, is there someone that we've identified to kind of take over and head up these programs? If, I mean, I'm assuming that's going to be taken pretty well by the school district, and I mean, the work that's going into it seems like there's a lot of work that's being put into it. Have we identified anyone to take over the programs after Josh leaves?
No, and that'll always be our challenge.
Okay.
We have a great zookeeper in Steve Burns, with the departure of Katrina, who was our zoo educator, and kind of the zoological society kind of wanting to focus on fundraising.
Yeah.
We took it upon ourselves to let's make a stronger effort for education, and not just about here's our wolves or here's our bears, come and take a look at them. More about real, up-to-date, impactful things like the bats and whatever else they're going to come up with.
Yeah.
So we said, let's take on education, let's expand it, let's develop it. We know people like Josh, they're only going to be here for a short amount of time. They're going to go on to bigger and better things. It's great for them. It's great for us. We get a good opportunity to work with these individuals. We'd love for Josh to stay for the next 5 to 10 years, but we're just hoping the next person can kind of pick up and continue doing what he's starting. And maybe this person will continue with the frog program and the bat program and the sensory program, but maybe add a couple more that are different direction. Maybe it's more more water-based stuff, like water chemistry type things or things of that nature. So we're going to keep pushing, and we'd like to keep them for as long as we can, but we also know Josh and students like that from Stevens Point are only here for a little time.
I mean, it just seems like very worthwhile programs. And I think it sounds like a very good direction you're headed in, so.
Yeah, we don't really have like a position available. I think there's a huge need for that in this community, to have like an assistant zookeeper, zoo educator type position.
Yeah.
Right now, we just don't have the funds.
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, it seems like UW Stevens Point is a really good program.
Right.
So, I mean, being able to use students from UW Stevens Point, give them the experience, would be very beneficial, I think, for both parties.
And I think Josh knows probably more about this, but I think we hired an intern.
Yep. So when I was creating these programs, I actually found out that I got the position in El Paso early February, but I accepted the position at Wildwood in January. I've been creating these programs knowing that I possibly might have gotten the position. I actually applied for El Paso in October. So I was trying to create these programs while I still had that insight that I might not be here, which is why I wanted to have partnerships with community members as well as UW Stevens Point, as well as creating these lesson plans in which there's a framework to look at. So I hope that future seasonal zookeepers or assistant zookeepers can pick up this lesson plan and kind of figure out what's going on and how to do it. We did hire or pick out an assistant zookeeper as well as a zookeeping intern, both of which are going to be starting here in April. So I'll be working alongside them as we're kind of trialing these different programs, and I hope that they pick them up and maybe even take these things in a different direction, because realistically that's how this position works and that's how these programs are going to have to work.
So Josh, you're leaving in July, right?
Yep, July.
So we've had him for over a year, which is great. We'd like to keep him longer, but that doesn't always happen. But so we're hoping the new people come in and pick up, and it's a great question. I wish we would, we have a full-time position, we could keep someone for long term.
I think the approach is, I mean, you're doing what you can with the resources we have, so I think it's great.
I'm hoping that we can kind of establish relationships with some biology teachers in the community, and even Columbus and Marshfield, but then see if the other neighboring communities, whether it's Stratford, Spencer, Pittsville, Auburndale, and those biology teachers can kind of establish a relationship with our zoo, not necessarily with Josh, but just our zoo, so they can kind of fill in those gaps, because they're always going to have new students. So Chris is a good example as a teacher who's always going to be there, but he'll always have fresh blood coming in each year. And bringing those kids down to the zoo, you put some of this stuff in their hands, they're going to be like, this is really cool. I can read about it in a book, I can look on it on a computer, but to get there and have hands on, it's going to be pretty cool.
Exactly.
There's a new initiative in Wisconsin as well, in which schools are being participants in this Green and Healthy Schools program, which aligns schools with fulfilling requirements to be green ribbon schools as well. So I've been creating lesson plans hoping in the future that maybe Wildwood could become a participant or a provider in this network, in which 14 different school districts within a 40-mile radius would look for Wildwood Park and Zoo in our lesson plans and come for a site visit as an assistance for them to fulfill their program requirements as well. So there's a pretty good natural resources program at UW Stevens Point, and there's different disciplines within it. So not just wildlife research and management, but then also environmental education as well. So I've been working with some of the environmental educators there. kind of learning as much as I can while I'm still there.
I just want to say one thing. I know I can imagine how much time you put into this. It's a really good,
Thank you.
really good. I especially like the iNaturalist site and the bat monitoring project, because I think bats get a bad rap,
They do.
you know, and they're kind of eerie, and I think
Mhm.
educating the public about them, I think it's great.
Cool.
So, good luck. Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Yeah,
Good luck
thank
in
you.
El Paso.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
going to remain a
I'm
Packer fan, I hope.
Yep.
Oh.
I'll probably have to come back every year
Good.
to
Okay.
see Muncie and Boda. I'll have to
Oh,
check
you
out.
have to.
I will.
No. Okay, we are moving on to item B, the 2016 summer program.
thank you.
Kelly Cassidy. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Justin had received an email from one of the elder persons with the knowledge that the YMCA's summer camp had filled pretty quickly. So we had sat down and talked about, is it something that we can try and offer? And I had said to him, we can try and see. We are going to put it in our summer brochure. We'll see what kind of registration we get. Kind of have a couple different options. My one concern is that a lot of kids do the 8 to noon summer school, and then looking for something noon to like 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. So have to look at those different options, prices, whatever. Are looking at Oak Avenue Community Center, and I just said to Justin, unless Ben can get air conditioning in those 2 side rooms, I don't know that that's the location that we want. Has a lot of nice activities right around that area, has a gym for indoor, great. But I do think that we need to provide some kind of an air conditioning system for those kids within the building. So there's a lot of things to be worked out before it's something that can truly happen, but we're at least working. Ben had said he would look at to see if that air could be put into Oak Ave, and we'll move forward from there. So
So we're looking at when would it start?
it'll start that June 6th after school is out.
Okay.
I do know that most of the colleges are starting that last week in August this
Okay,
year.
okay.
So we would not make it through the entire school year. I mean, I've already looked at that would be one of the issues. That week before Labor Day would probably be, we would make it to the 26th of August, I think is a Friday. I think the 28th is a Monday, maybe it's the 25th. But anyways, that last week, we would
Okay.
not be able to fulfill having a program that very last week in August.
Okay, so then would you hire summer help for that?
Correct, yep,
Or,
yep. We would hire probably 2, depending on how many kids we have, but I've looked at hiring 2 individuals that would do 40 hours, and then possibly 2 individuals that would split the shift of morning or afternoon so that you cover that lunch hour so that everybody gets an hour break, except for those two part-time people. I mean, the 2 full-time people would need, looking at possibly 21 students. That's what we look
Okay.
at this point in time, so.
okay. Does anyone have any questions for Kelly? No, I think it's great, I do. Especially since I know people that stood in line to get into the YMCA program, and they said, I stood for hours and didn't get in, and they don't know now what to do. So I really do. I think it's good, and I think we need to really give it a try. If Oak Avenue Community wouldn't work, is there another place we're kind of thinking of, or no?
School districts, the only problem with the school district is they're cleaning and they don't really, to let us in the building, we would have to check. But Oak Ave is what we're looking at right now.
Okay.
Just with tennis being there,
I know.
we do run a basketball program, we have the baseball fields to do a variety of different things.
Okay.
So, and there are some programs that we already do in there that will cause, not conflict, but the fact that the gym wouldn't, if it's a rain day, the gym is already being used for certain things.
Okay, good. No questions? Okay, that was an information-only item. So we are on to item C, the 2017-2021 CIP project presented by Justin.
Thank you. In your packet, you should have kind of the 2017, 2021 CIP plan for the Parks and Recreation Department. You can see there's a number of items on that plan. You'll notice there's a number of trail projects also on that plan. One of the goals that I have is to get most of our trails that are already existing to connect them in some capacity or way, whether that's on street with a sidewalk or off-street, which is some sort of trail through a natural area. So we're currently working with that. We're still working with the Weber Park property. If you guys remember a couple meetings ago, we're still working with some people on the acquisition of that piece of property, but not much has moved since then. I'm not going to go through grave detail. I think you guys pretty much can read what each of those entail and where they're slotted on the timeline. I pretty much just tried to carry forward what Mr. Ed Engelhart started and expanded on a few of them. The big one is probably the Wildwood McMillan Connector Trail for 2017. As you know, state funding was postponed for a while, and it's been postponed and held off for many, many years. So construction costs keep going up and inflation keeps going up, but that grant dollar keeps staying the same. So we're anticipating a loss with the project right now, so we're asking for additional funding to get the project done. So we'll see how that goes. We've met twice now with the CIP group. I'm not sure how many times we meet in total, but it's probably a few more times before they make a recommendation to the Common Council. Other than that, we have for 2017 a playground improvement program. I already removed that from the CIP for next year. I took that off. Reason being is we were going to do a port in place at the playground at the fairgrounds. But we had a company come in and do an inspection, and he doesn't recommend putting a port in place at that location because the playground is probably going to be replaced in the next 10 years. And he said, if you're going to put a port in place and put that kind of money in it, and then in 10 years rip the whole thing out, because you can't put a new playground in when you have port in place, you got to rip the whole thing out, put everything back in. He goes, I'd recommend just replacing the whole playground and putting a port in place so your investment is just as long. Because port in place is extremely expensive material to put down on a playground. And does everyone know what port in place is? It's that kind of rubbery, cushy material, not shredded tires, but an actual flat surface you can walk across. It's extremely expensive to do. Reason we want to put it there is anytime we have heavy rains, the mulch and wood fiber in there get washed out and they're gone. So we always are dealing with erosion issues inside that playground. So we identified that playground as a good spot to put some port in place and try it out in our park system to see if that's something we're going to go forward with in the future. But since they said to replace, it's $25,000 just for that surface, and he said don't put it in, replace the whole thing. So we'll have to bring it back and get an estimate on what it costs to replace the playground and structure at that size. So that'll probably happen in 2018 or 19. Also in 2017, we have the Columbia Park band shell. What we're looking to do there is replace those weather panels that are on the exterior we put up in the winter. We want to extend those somehow all the way out to the front of the pavilion. So if this was our band shell, we put these weather panels on there right here, but our actual band shell floor goes out to here, so nothing covers this area. So we need to get something that kind of goes that way. And this one's kind of old, so we're going to look at doing something that goes this way so we can keep the snow and that sitting snow especially off of that. We also have the Zoo Welcome Center and Cougar exhibit. I think you guys probably know about this, and this is the zoo store, the restrooms, and the Cougar exhibit. We want to see if we can design some sort of building that can accommodate all three of those uses. We're building a maintenance building down there, and soon Steve will have most of his operations out of one building rather than three buildings. So that'll be a huge improvement towards operations and efficiencies. So when he moves, we'll have a kind of a vacant building that might be usable for a zoo store. Then we can accommodate the zoo store and we get some ADA accessible restrooms, because right now our restrooms are not ADA accessible. But I think the worst of it is that they smell really bad. If you've ever been in the restrooms, they do smell because they're attached to the bear exhibit. And the bears, they don't smell that great. So that's our plan. And then we have some other ones with the park asphalt maintenance program, forestry program, which is pretty much going to be concentrated to EAB plan. And then the Brain Park tennis courts, and that we talked about that before, replacing those tennis courts down at Brain Park. We'll look at if we're just going to replace them with just tennis courts or do some standalone pickleball courts or basketball or a combination of a couple things. So we'll look at how we're going to do that. And then lastly is park master plans, which I did remove from the CIP at this point because I don't think we have a clear identified park that we need to do a master plan for. So might as well save some dollars and spend it somewhere else in the city. Any questions on the CIP? I didn't really go into 2018, 19, 20, 21 because I still a ways off, and some of those activities have already been cut just to make room for some of the other city functions, whether it's engineering or public works.
Any questions? Okay, that's an information-only item. So we're moving on to 6, reports, the Zoological Society. And since Tom is not here, I guess we can nix that.
I think did
Oh,
the
did he?
minutes, were the minutes included? I believe they were, right? The minutes included in your packet?
No.
Then don't think they met. They were supposed to meet last week, and I don't think they met. So they probably didn't have a report because they didn't, I don't think they met.
Okay.
So
That's okay. Moving on to recreation.
Library Community Center, we are currently working on floor plans, hoping to have something at our next meeting, probably to bring to this committee. Tennis Racquetball Center continues to be busier than it has in the past. However, as we get this nicer weather, we're gonna start to see people going outside. I do know bows and nets are up, and we were planning to get ours up, nets up probably next week was the hope, that Ben had said. Offering our last session of indoor tennis lessons right now that just started, and they'll run for 6 weeks. Ken Swenson is teaching those again, so we're lucky with that. Pickleball, once volleyball is going to end here, we are going to add Thursday nights. They've asked for Tuesday and Thursday nights, and then Thursday from 1 to 3. So, and we're seeing that increase of southern people come back now. So things are getting busy. So I think people are deciding, I want to play Tuesday night, I want to play Thursday night. Open swim and gym for the winter session has ended it Wednesday the 16th. Actually, last night was our last night for open swim. And then early bird lap swim will continue through April 7th. Outdoor ice rinks closed Friday, February 26th. And our last indoor skating session was held on February 15th. For the early release dates. Volleyball will wrap up here March 24th. Thursday night is the latest night. And then starting work on the summer brochure, it'll be out to the public on Friday, April 15th. We have switched, in the past, Buyer's Guide has done the brochure for us. They had decided they didn't want to do it anymore, so Heinz and Printing has picked up the same agreement. And I don't know if you're all familiar with how the brochure gets printed. There's ads that are sold. They then do all the typesetting for us, and they print it, and there is no cost to us. So, the return letter for summer staff has gone out, and they need to have it back by Friday the 25th, so we kind of know what returning staff we have and what we have to advertise for hiring. So, that's all I have.
Any questions for Kelly? Okay. Seeing as none, we'll move on. C, Parks and Zoo.
I'll give Ben's report. He's
Okay.
got really only 2 items. Park staff have begun starting spring cleanup and started installing water meters and charging the restrooms. I think he plans to have those open pretty soon. Playground inspections and swing installation has begun, and then litter pickup and branch collection started. The zoo, we touched on it, but the zoo intern and zoo assistant zookeeper positions were filled. Maintenance staff have been performing improvements in the hay barn, and they have been working on acquiring a new animal transport trailer. We're hoping to use it for picking up the bighorn sheep we're getting here in April. So, and of course, I don't need to talk about the educational programs because you just saw them, but we're also starting a new education programs this spring. That's all for Ben.
Might as well go on right to the, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Director.
Just, I got 3 things. One's a redundant one from what Kelly had on top that I didn't see. Hackman Field, our bids were open on February 25th. We had 8 companies submit the bids. Unfortunately, all bids came higher than what was budgeted. So we're trying to work with some local baseball groups and the school districts in Columbus to see if they're willing to pitch in a little bit to give a financial contribution towards the project. Nevertheless, I need to present this to the Board of Public Works on April 4th to make a decision because we only have a 45-day window to execute those contracts. So after those 45 days, those contracts will expire, and then no project will be done. And it's been delayed now for 3 years, so I want to make sure this project actually happens, because it'll be a big improvement for our operations. Zoo maintenance building, we're still working on the design. We're working with a local local designer on the design of the building. It's a long process when you plumbing, electrical, heating, ventilation, all that stuff. So it takes a long time. So we're still doing our design of the maintenance building. Community center, Kelly talked about. Fairgrounds, Rich and I actually have the pleasure of sitting on some strategic planning meetings. We've had 2 so far. I think they're going pretty good. The strategic planning meetings are between the Fair Commission, the city, the council, and the Central Wisconsin State Fair. So those groups are meeting together to kind of talk about the goals of trying to preserve the fair, increase communication, kind of understand everyone's role, and see what kind of improvements we can make down there. So things are going, I'd say, pretty good. We're hopefully some results can come out of the meetings and some stuff we can actually act on. That's all I have.
Anyone have questions? Nick?
Are we off quite a bit, or I guess how far off are we from the proposals to the budget?
Are we what?
How far, I guess how high? how
Oh,
much
for
higher
the
are proposals?
Hackman?
Yeah.
Well, we're 15,000 off.
That's not significant.
But there's an ad alternate, and an ad alternate is a concrete approach and a concrete sidewalk that's kind of not needed. We can still build the building and be efficient, but we wanted to add the concrete so when vehicles came and entered the area, they wouldn't. That was one thing we identified. So we're about $7,500 off.
Okay.
So we're hoping that the baseball groups can.
So it's really not too
No, it's not too bad.
Okay.
It's just I'm not sure if the Board of Public Works will be open to the idea
Yeah, I'm not
of
saying
being that.
we increase the budget, I wasn't sure if it'd be something that the baseball groups could cover, if they'd be willing to or not, so.
I think if they make it an attempt
Yeah,
and provide some,
I would agree.
That would be helpful. And the Board of Public Works, I think, would understand and
Yep.
be willing to contribute some money.
Okay.
And it's been 3 years delayed, and you took construction costs and inflation, this was happens. If you can't move on your project right away, each year you should almost add 3% to all your projects.
Yep. Okay.
Good.
I had one question, and it's actually going back to the CIP with the trail, the Wildwood Mill and Connector Trail funds that we'll need for 2017 because of increases in prices. The deadline for the project is still the end of 2016, right? That's been extended.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a fun game to play with the state. They impose deadlines, and then when you are ready to move on them, then they say, "Oh, we're going to postpone it for another year."
Okay.
So.
I was just curious. Yeah, that was under that interpretation too, like, or impression by the end of the year that it had to be done, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, they-
reallocated funds to other projects. And I don't know all of the details. Our Public Works Director, Dan Connect, has kind of been taking the lead after Ed left. And so that was one of the questions that he asked, because he just got an email, and they're like, well, it wasn't up to us. I was just telling you what was going on, and someone else made that decision. You're like, well, how do you just move money from one project to another when it was budgeted? So, yeah, we were told there was a deadline, and they were like, oh, it's not being funded, so there's no deadline, you have no money. But you'll get it next year, so the next fiscal year we'll get the money. Supposedly, potentially. Let's hope.
Fingers crossed. Okay, item E, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments? None? I just have one thing. This morning, when I was looking online, there were 7 things to do in Marshfield this weekend, and I never looked at any of them. I know, that's bad. But there is an exploration community Easter egg hunt Saturday, the 19th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Wildwood Park in Marshfield. It's come and go for kids 12 and under, and it's presented by the Kiwanis. So, anyone out there who wants to attend that? Next meeting is Thursday, April 14th at 5:30. Does that work for everyone?
I think so.
Okay. Good. And we're moving on to adjournment. Anyone want to make a motion? Motion by Rich, second by Chris. We're adjourned.